When studying the complexity in communication and cognition, animals of high intelligence and proficient vocal learning skills are usually chosen to be the models of experiments, such as chimpanzees, bonobos, and gorillas, as they can easily compare to humans. However, lacking the ability to copy novel sounds and create innovative gestures, they are now less preferred in advanced comparative communication studies compared with another mammal, bottlenose dolphins. Living in old oceans and main rivers, the chemosensory and visual system of dolphins are limited, which makes the sensory world of dolphins primarily acoustic. As a result, a large proportion of dolphin communication relies on acoustic signals and echolocation. Besides, there are also striking similarities between primates and dolphins. Like other primates, dolphins live in a fish-and-fusion society in which they gather and split as time passes. To keep track of the individuals and their relationships, a finely tuned communication system is required to reveal their location as well as showing their own identity. That brings about signature whistle, a unique and distinct sound that each dolphin develops within the first year of their life. Baby dolphins adopt signature whistles from the adults in the same pod until they are old enough to find their own style. Once found, it rarely changes through the adulthood. Dolphins' whistles in the wild can be classified into signature and non-signature whistles. Dolphins primarily produce signature whistles when one individual is separated from the rest of the group. It is defined as the most common whistle type that an individual uses when in isolation. When all animals are together, they primarily produce non-signature whistles. With respect to signature whistles, three major questions have been provided, and we'll address each of them in the following. First, how do signature whistles function in dolphins' communication? They can provide information of individual and hence can maintain group cohesion. As experiments have shown that dolphins responded more strongly to signature whistles of related than unrelated but familiar individuals. Besides, signature whistles can also encode information such as their own motivational state. Second, what is the role of signature whistle copying in the communication system of dolphins? Researchers have found that socially interactive dolphins not only produce signature whistles, but also produce imitation of one another's signature whistles, supporting the idea that the main function of such copying is to address one another individual. In addition, males can converge on a similar signature whistle type, which they will use even outside of direct whistle interactions. Signature whistles of females, on the other hand, usually remain stable for more than a decade. Third, how do signature whistles develop in young animals? Researchers have found that young dolphins can produce shaking and steady whistles and then gradually develop into a steady, stereotyped whistle during their first year of life. Additionally, gender has a slight effect on the acquisition of whistles. It is suggested that female dolphin calves tend to produce whistles that are highly distinct from those of their mothers, whereas males are more likely to produce whistles similar to those of their mothers. A study conducted in the Mediterranean Sea looked into the characteristics of signature whistles and whether they are associated to any behaviors. Researchers have found that isolated dolphins would exchange signature whistles after rejoining other groups in the wild. The study has found that various information can be encoded in their signature whistles by varying their whistle parameters, which can be divided into 7 kinds. Amongst the 7 types, a rising whistle contour is the most common type, appearing 39% of time. Speaking of behavior, there are 4 main types of behavior that can be observed in bottlenose dolphins. The most common behavior is predation, followed by depredation, which is the action of taking or attempting to take prey that are caught in the fishing nets. Finally, there are also socializing and traveling. There seems to be an association between the behaviors and the type of signature whistles being used. A rise is most commonly associated with socialization, which can be linked to dolphins exchanging identity and locating one another. And the U-shape is most commonly found in depredation behavior, multi-looped in predation. and sign most commonly related to traveling. You can see that the right signature whistle is really common and covers all four observed behaviors quite evenly except for socializing. So maybe it can be said that the acoustic features of a whistle can be used to communicate specific information on the behavioral context of a dolphin. Another experiment in 2014 investigated the motivation and signature whistles in mother-calf reunion. A 29-year-old bottlenose dolphin named Marina and her 3 to 5 months old female calf Windley were selected as testers in the experiment. The experiment was conducted in a 28 meters by 15 meter seawater lagoon. A trainer used hand and verbal signals to ask Marina to retrieve the baby or an object. In a calf retrieving test, Windley was always in another part of the lagoon far from her mother. When Marina knew the position of Windley, she would retrieve her baby without whistling. However, when she did not know the location, she would use her own signature whistle to show the location and her motivation to reunite. Nonetheless, Windley barely replied with her signature whistle despite Marina continuously produced her signature whistle. In the object retrieving test, the distance between the object and Marina is set at a similar distance as in a calf retrieving test. Marina would barely use her signature whistles and only use it at the beginning of the test.